I thought I was just helping my friend move boxes, but the way her aunt looked at me, smiled at me, and finally asked if I could handle her too, changed everything. I didn't think much of it at first. Helping a friend move was something I'd done plenty of times before, sweaty afternoons filled with taped-up boxes, the scent of dust rising as you shuffle furniture through doorways that were never quite wide enough. But that day felt different, even before I realized why. The sun hung heavy in the late summer sky, warming the quiet suburban street. Cardboard stacked like miniature walls on the porch, each one labeled in a rushed scrawl. My arms ached already from the first trips, and sweat had gathered at the back of my neck, sticking my shirt uncomfortably to my skin. Still, I kept moving box after box, determined to make myself useful. That's when I noticed her. She wasn't rushing around like everyone else, not darting from the truck to the house, not barking instructions or fumbling with rolls of tape. No, she stood apart, leaning against the porch rail as though she had all the time in the world. The way she held herself caught me off guard. Tall, graceful, with an ease that didn't demand attention but somehow drew mine anyway. Her smile was the first thing that held me. Not wide or exaggerated, but the kind that curves gently, like a secret she wasn't planning on telling. It wasn't mocking, though I must have looked clumsy, balancing boxes twice my size. No, it was warm, almost amused, as if she was quietly enjoying the sight of me working harder than I needed to. I tried to keep my eyes forward, to pretend I hadn't noticed her watching. But every time I passed the porch, I felt it, the pull of her gaze, steady and unhurried. The details came slowly, in stolen glances. She was older, that much was clear, maybe 40, maybe a little more, though her presence carried a kind of youthful sharpness. A linen blouse, sleeves rolled to the elbow, hinted at both elegance and practicality. Her dark hair, caught by the afternoon breeze, framed her face in loose waves. And those eyes, steady, deep, reflecting something I couldn't quite name, made me feel like she saw through more than just the effort I was putting into carrying cardboard. For a moment, I felt self-conscious. I was only here to help, nothing more. But when I finally dared to look back, our eyes locked. Just a flicker, a second too long. And that was when I felt it. That quiet spark, the kind that doesn't announce itself with fireworks, but with the steady hum of something waiting, something unspoken. Her smile deepened almost imperceptibly, and I felt a flush rise to my face, though the sun gave me every excuse. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. In that silence, in that simple shared glance, I realized this move might turn out to be more than just about boxes. The rhythm of moving boxes had almost become a shield for me. Lift, carry, set down, repeat. It was easier to focus on the ache in my arms and the creak of the stairs than on the woman watching me. But eventually, I couldn't avoid her, not when she chose to step closer. I had just balanced a heavy box against my hip, trying not to let it slip, when I heard the faint tap of her sandals on the porch wood. The sound was light, steady, but unmistakably deliberate, the kind of approach that made me aware of every bead of sweat on my face. "You're going to hurt your back carrying them like that," she said, her voice warm but tinged with amusement. I turned, and there she was, standing only a few feet away now. In the daylight, her presence was even sharper. The soft lines at the corners of her eyes didn't take away from her beauty. If anything, they deepened it, gave her expressions a richness that made me want to look longer. Her tone wasn't scolding, more teasing. "I'll survive," I managed, forcing a smile. She tilted her head, studying me in a way that made me feel oddly transparent. "Think you can handle the heavy ones too?" Her words seemed casual enough, about the boxes stacked on the porch, but the way she said it lingered. The faint pause, the playful lilt in her voice, almost like she was testing me, weighing how I'd react. I laughed, though it came out more nervous than I wanted. "I've got it covered. I promise." Her smile widened, just a little, and I swear there was a sparkle in her eyes, subtle, but deliberate. She didn't look away. That quiet, steady confidence unnerved me more than the weight of any box I'd carried so far. For a moment, the world around us, the muffled sounds of people inside, the distant slam of a car door seemed to fade. It was just her, standing close enough that I caught the faintest trace of her perfume, something floral but grounded, like lavender touched with cedar. "Good," she said finally, her voice dropping softer, almost thoughtful. "Because not everyone can." The words were simple, yet they left me unsettled. I knew she was still talking about the move, but a part of me couldn't shake the idea that she meant something more. I adjusted the box in my arms, grateful for an excuse to look away, but even then I could feel her watching, her presence lingering like the heat in the air. By the time I carried the box inside and set it down, my pulse hadn't slowed. It wasn't just the work, it was her. The way she spoke to me, the way her gaze held just a fraction longer than necessary. It was only a few words, only a passing moment, but it felt like the beginning of something I didn't quite understand yet, something that pulled at me stronger than I wanted to admit. By the third or fourth trip through the house, the routine had settled in. Lift a box from the porch, balance it against my chest, edge through the narrow hallway, and try not to scuff the walls with my elbows. It should have been mindless work, except that every time I moved through the house, I seemed to cross paths with her. She wasn't rushing around, like her niece or the others. Instead, she moved with a calm steadiness, directing the flow of boxes, pointing toward rooms, occasionally stepping in to shift something herself. And each time I passed her, I found myself paying less attention to the box in my arms and more to the brush of proximity. The hallway was especially narrow upstairs. Once, as I struggled to angle a box through the door frame, I felt her come up behind me. Her hand grazed my shoulder lightly, just to guide me, no pressure, just a touch. But it startled me all the same, sending a quick, unwelcome rush of heat through me. "Careful," she murmured. Her breath was close enough that I caught it against the back of my neck, warmer than the air-conditioned house around us. I nodded, adjusting the box quickly. "Thanks. These things have a mind of their own." She chuckled softly, and the sound stayed with me long after she'd stepped back. It kept happening, small, fleeting moments that shouldn't have meant anything, but did. When she pointed to the far corner of the living room, her sleeve brushed my arm. When she walked past me in the hall, the scent of her perfume lingered behind, subtle but impossible to ignore. I tried to focus. I told myself it was just the closeness of the space, the natural byproduct of working together in a crowded house. But then came the moment in the kitchen. I was setting a box down on the counter, stretching my sore arms, when she reached over me to slide it further back. The motion was casual, practical even, but her hand brushed mine in the process. Just skin against skin for the briefest second. Still, it sent a current through me, sharp enough to leave me breathless. She didn't flinch, didn't rush to pull away. Instead, she gave the smallest smile, one corner of her mouth lifting, as though she knew exactly the effect she was having, and maybe wasn't entirely sorry for it. I swallowed hard, pretending to busy myself with another box. But inside, my thoughts were louder than ever. This wasn't just about carrying things anymore. It was about her. The way she carried herself, the subtle ways she drew closer, the unspoken awareness that simmered between us every time we crossed paths. And though I told myself to ignore it, to focus on the task at hand, a part of me couldn't stop wondering, was she feeling it too? By late afternoon, the weight of the day was catching up with me. My shirt clung to my back, damp with sweat, and the ache in my arms had spread to a dull throb across my shoulders. I set the latest box down in the living room with a heavy sigh, leaning against it for a moment before straightening up. That's when she appeared again, stepping in from the hallway with a calmness that contrasted so sharply with the chaos of the move. She carried 2 glasses of water in her hands, condensation dripping down the sides. "You look like you could use this," she said, offering one out to me. I took it carefully, but in the exchange our fingers brushed. Just the lightest touch, skin against skin, but it lingered longer than I expected. My throat was dry, and not just from the work. "Thanks," I murmured, lifting the glass quickly to take a sip. The water was cool, refreshing, but it was the weight of her gaze that left me unsettled. The room was quieter than it had been all day. The shuffling footsteps and voices from upstairs seemed distant, muffled. Afternoon sunlight filtered in through the thin curtains, painting soft streaks of gold across the floorboards. For the first time all day, there was no rush, no excuse to move. Just stillness. She leaned against the edge of the couch, crossing her arms loosely, watching me over the rim of her glass as she sipped. There was something searching in her eyes, as though she wasn't just looking at me, she was trying to read me. I set my glass down, suddenly hyper-aware of how close she was. "I'm not sure I've made much of a dent in all this," I said lightly, gesturing toward the towers of boxes still waiting. Her lips curved into a small smile. "You've done more than enough. More than I expected." The way she said it, soft, sincere, carried an undertone I couldn't quite place. I found myself holding her gaze longer than I should have. A silence stretched between us, not awkward, but heavy with something unspoken. I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner, the tick of a clock on the wall, even the sound of her breath, slow, steady. I shifted slightly, trying to shake the tension, but she didn't move. Instead, she tilted her head, her expression almost curious, almost vulnerable. It struck me then, beneath her calm, confident presence, there was something else. A quiet hesitation, maybe, or a question she wasn't asking out loud. And I realized that I felt it too, that pull toward her that I couldn't quite explain but couldn't ignore. When she finally looked away, taking another sip of water, I released a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. It was just a pause, just a shared moment of stillness in a busy day. Yet it left me more shaken, more aware of her, than any passing glance or accidental touch had before. And deep down, I knew it wasn't the last time that day I'd feel it. By the time the last few boxes were hauled inside, the day had begun to fold into evening. The cicadas outside had started their steady hum, and the heat that had pressed down on us all afternoon was finally loosening its grip. I stepped out onto the porch, stretching my sore arms, and drew in the cooler air with a long breath. The sky above was awash in fading color, streaks of orange, pink, and the deepening blue of approaching night. I let myself sink into the quiet of it, the kind of peace that only comes after a long day of work. I wasn't alone for long. The soft creak of the porch boards gave her away before I even saw her. She came to stand beside me, close enough that her sleeve brushed against my arm as she leaned lightly against the rail. I glanced at her, trying not to make it obvious, but the dim glow of the setting sun caught her features in a way that made it impossible to look away for long. "Done for the day?" she asked, her tone light, almost casual. "Looks like it," I said, rubbing the back of my neck. "At least until they find something else for me to carry." She laughed, a low, warm sound that seemed to settle into me. "You really did handle it all like it was nothing." I shrugged, trying to play it off, though my chest tightened under her gaze. "Guess I've had some practice." She was quiet for a moment, studying the horizon, though I could feel her attention never truly left me. Then, with a smile tugging faintly at her lips, she spoke again. "Makes me wonder," she said softly, "if you could handle me just as well." The words landed between us like a spark in dry grass. My chest tightened, and for a moment I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It wasn't crude, the way she said it wasn't playful banter tossed carelessly into the evening air. It was gentle, measured, laced with something deeper. Vulnerability hiding inside a tease. I turned my head to look at her, searching her face. She didn't shy away. Her eyes met mine steadily, though there was the faintest trace of uncertainty in them, like she was testing the waters of something unspoken. My pulse quickened, the thrum of it loud in my ears. I managed a small, nervous laugh, though it didn't feel enough to cover the weight of what she'd said. "That's a tough question," I admitted quietly. Her smile deepened, but it wasn't triumphant. It was softer, almost relieved, as if my hesitation proved I understood what she really meant. She leaned a little closer, her shoulder brushing mine again, and the quiet night seemed to fold around us. In that moment, I realized she wasn't just teasing. She was reaching, carefully, cautiously, to see if I might reach back. The porch light buzzed faintly above us, casting a warm circle of glow that pushed gently against the darkness. Beyond the railing, the street was quiet, lined with still shadows of trees swaying in the evening breeze. The hum of cicadas had softened, replaced by the occasional bark of a dog somewhere down the block. It was the kind of night that felt like it was holding its breath. She hadn't moved from where she stood beside me, her shoulder just brushing mine, her glass of water still in her hand though she hadn't lifted it in minutes. The silence between us wasn't heavy, not uncomfortable, but it carried weight. Something unsaid, hovering, waiting for someone to open the door to it. I was the one who broke it. My voice came quieter than I intended. You know, I didn't expect today to feel like this. She turned, her eyes catching the porch light, reflecting it like dark water. Like what? I hesitated, struggling to find the right words. My chest tightened, my throat dry. Like more than just moving boxes. Like, I don't know. Like I was here for something else. Something I didn't see coming. Her expression softened, the faintest crease forming between her brows. She looked down at her glass, then back at me, her lips parting slightly before she spoke. I wasn't sure you'd even notice. Notice what? I asked, though I already knew. She let out a breath, steady but quiet. Me. The word was simple, but the way she said it, hushed, uncertain, made my chest ache. This was a woman who carried herself with ease, with confidence, yet here she was revealing a sliver of doubt, of fragility she'd kept hidden all day. I shook my head softly. How could I not? Her gaze held mine then, searching, as though testing if I meant it. You're younger, she said finally, the words carrying the weight of something long thought but rarely spoken. Most men your age don't look twice at someone like me. Not seriously. I felt the urge to close the distance between us, to erase the doubt in her voice. Instead, I spoke carefully, letting the truth come through. That's where you're wrong. I don't think I've stopped looking at you since the moment you smiled at me. Her lips curved, not in playfulness this time, but in something almost vulnerable. She set her glass on the railing, freeing her hand, and then slowly, deliberately, she reached for mine. Her fingers slid into my palm, warm and sure. The simple contact was enough to steady me and unsettle me all at once. My pulse quickened, but I didn't let go. Maybe, she whispered, her thumb brushing lightly across the back of my hand. I wanted to see if you'd admit that. The night seemed to draw tighter around us, the hum of the porch light, the coolness of the breeze, all fading beneath the quiet press of her skin against mine. In that moment I understood, she wasn't asking for strength, or proof, or even answers. She was asking if I would stand still in this fragile space with her. And I knew, without hesitation, that I wanted to. Her hand rested easily in mine, as though it had belonged there all along. I felt the gentle weight of it, the warmth of her skin, and the quiet steadiness of her pulse brushing against my palm. For a long moment neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was full, thick with everything we'd left unsaid. I turned slightly, just enough to face her fully. The porch light softened the edges of her profile, tracing her cheekbones, catching the subtle strands of her hair that moved with the evening breeze. There was a calmness about her now, but also something raw, a question lingering in the way her eyes met mine, as if she was still searching for reassurance. I gave it the only way I knew how. I lifted her hand slowly, pressing it against my chest. Beneath her palm, my heartbeat raced faster than I'd have liked, but maybe that was the point. I wanted her to feel it, the proof that what I felt was real, that she had stirred something in me that no weight of boxes, no physical exhaustion, could ever match. Her lips parted slightly, and I saw the flicker of emotion cross her face, surprise, tenderness, relief. Then, without a word, she leaned in. Her head came to rest lightly on my shoulder, her hair brushing against my jaw, carrying with it that faint scent of lavender and cedar I had been catching all day. The contact was simple, innocent even, but it unraveled me. The warmth of her cheek against my shirt, the soft pressure of her body leaning into mine, the steady rhythm of her breathing, all of it grounded me in a way I hadn't expected. I let out a quiet breath, one I hadn't realized I was holding, and shifted just enough to wrap my free arm gently around her. Not tight, not claiming, just steady, offering. She accepted it, settling closer, as if she'd been waiting for this space all along. For a while, we just stood there. The street remained quiet, the air cooling around us, the night folding softly over the porch like a blanket. The world outside, the boxes stacked in rooms, the family busy inside, the expectations that hovered around us both, didn't matter. Not in that moment. What mattered was the way she allowed herself to lean, and the way I allowed myself to hold. Finally, she spoke, her voice so soft I almost missed it. "You don't know what this means to me." I tightened my arm around her ever so slightly. "Maybe I don't," I admitted, "but I know what it means to me." She exhaled slowly, a sound that carried both release and gratitude. And there, beneath the humming porch light and the quiet of the evening, something unspoken settled between us. She hadn't asked me to prove strength. She hadn't asked me to carry her like a box. What she had asked, what she had really been searching for, was steadiness. And I realized, with her in my arms, that I wanted nothing more than to give her exactly that. If this story touched you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more slow burn age gap romance stories. Share this video with someone who loves heartfelt storytelling, and let me know in the comments, what was your favorite moment between them?